a rich man's world. I have turned the soul of this beautiful land, but the beautiful.
Yep.
I'll put over there on that side.
Okay. Welcome to the Wheels and Hour show. I'm your host, Michael Phelps, from the Wheels and Hour. We are a community group that our main focus is mending broken fences amongst, within families and educating our community. I'm your host, Michael Phelps, once again. I'll let all the kings and queens introduce themselves. We got special guests.
Marion Bailey.
Raymond Carlisle.
Right, Jolly.
Sharice Gregory.
Okay. And today's topic is about we're talking about double standards and how do they apply within workforces, within within our community, within our within jobs, within media. So what everybody take on the double standards that we've been seeing, lately, just like what's it? Well, before we get started, you had some things you thought about, like you wanted to talk about, like some of the news, some of the things that happened.
A couple headlines.
Yeah.
Sure. We can go through a few. Let's see here. A father and son were confronted by a neighbor for loud music. The neighbor shoots and kills both the stepfather and the son. He flees. Cops later pull his vehicle over and kills that suspect. That happened in New Jersey. Michigan Supreme Court ruled that the former governor will not face criminal charges, get this, for Flint, Michigan's water crisis. Can you believe that? Wow. Keep in mind the black population there is 56%. The median income is $18,000, and the problem still exists. Can you believe that? A coach, a teacher, and a Disney employee were all arrested this week in what they're saying is the largest human trafficking sting. Wow. Horrible. Right?
Where was that at?
Orlando.
Oh, yeah. Just imagine all the kids. Oh, wow.
Can you believe that? Yeah.
Yeah.
With all of the tourists, right?
Oh, man.
So, a New Jersey elementary school janitor was arrested last week. They said he is accused of putting feces in the school lunches. What? Elementary school. Amazon has purchased land in Nevada the size of 227 football fields. I think that it's going to be an airport. That's what I think. But it hasn't. They haven't said what they're going to do with it. But that's a lot of space. I know they do have some space in Chicago. I got a couple friends out there that
more warehouses, but yeah, that's a lot of space.
Yeah, so they do have their own planes. So who knows?
Who is the organization?
Amazon.
I didn't even know they had their own planes.
Yep. And they do have a strip in Chicago area.
Oh, really?
Illinois
I didn't know
area.
that. Okay.
So that's what I'm thinking it is.
I
But we'll
didn't
see.
know that.
Yeah, as that comes out. The latest on the war, we have Russia and China positioning themselves to defend the Gaza Strip, while Ukraine, the United States, will help Israel. So that's a couple of the headlines over there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we're gonna get back to go back to the double standards. So what was your thoughts about some of the things like remember the teacher that was romanticizing a child?
Yeah.
And
she was a secretary, and she was like 34, 36. And one of the students, he had to be a sophomore, so like 15, 16 years old. And the young man would come in the office to work, how they do if it's their off period or whatever. And the young lady, I'm calling her young lady, but she is an adult, she would make passes at this young boy and tell him, if I was your age, I would have already bagged you, things like that. When the story hit headlines, women were disgusted. How dare you? How are you a predator on our children? We don't send our kids to school for this. While men were saying, is he gay? Why did he report it? Why did he say he was uncomfortable? What's wrong with that boy? He could have bagged him a 34-year-old woman, 36-year-old.
Men were saying that?
Yeah, in the comments. And just, it disgusted.
Perfect example of double standards.
Perfect example.
Because what is like his sexual? What does that have to do? He's a boy and she's a grown woman.
Right, you're in a position of power.
So yeah, like she's an adult and he's a child. Still, I mean, he's a young man, but he's not of age. So that's disgusting. Like the predator, when we talk about people preying on children, predators can be women or men for that matter. Yeah. So if we're gonna get on men for approaching and it goes the same way for women, as far as I'm concerned. He's a young boy, so he's not. You're a grown woman, so we shouldn't be looking at a young man that way. And he obviously that was taught to him. Yeah. Because he didn't. So the fact that he told now and all of a sudden he has to be gay. Like I'm just like no, like that's wrong. Right. Period. Like she's a grown woman, so he shouldn't have to worry about grown women, coming at him like that. So. Yeah, exactly, making him feel uncomfortable. Just like a young girl. Because when you're young, I remember a teenager like, oh, he's an old man, because when you're young, everybody's old. When you're a teenager, everybody's old.
50 was ridiculous.
You're like, oh, my parents are old, and really, it's like, okay, now I'm not like, hey, no, it's not old. Now you get offended. It's like, okay, to a kid, it is old. Yeah. So they get offended, but then you have the other kids. Sometimes you have girls or boys who do like, older people, older than them. But at the same time, I feel like being in a school where you should be, we know there's all types of predators and stuff in these schools, but for that response from him, that's very interesting. And no, like he knew that wasn't right, and that's good. We have to teach our kids that, or young people around us, that's not okay. She's like a grown woman, like it's just not okay.
No.
Yeah. One of the things that we as in a community, men are praised for liking older women. When a girl likes an older man, it's like we kind of like, oh well, she's an older guy, what I mean? For men, it's like we get praised, by other men. But there's no standard towards men moving. But when it comes to the woman,
But why do you, as a man, why do you think that is?
I just think it's a learned, it's a taught behavior. Okay. I just think it was just something, it was always pushed upon us as, oh, you cool, you got older women liking you.
Oh, gotcha.
You know what I mean? And then there was incidents where we was growing up, and when we was going to high school and stuff, all the older men was coming to pick up the young girls.
Yes, that's true.
And women didn't like us.
Every high school.
Yeah.
So
and they were told, "Hey, go get your older man to take care of you." Like, yeah. So
and, we was hurt because we couldn't could drive around in the fanciest car and have all the money, had her own crib at at a young age.
Right.
And they still do it though. I mean, there somewhere there is a high school. Either you might be 17, 18 years old, messing with a woman in the neighborhood that could be in her 20s and have 2 or 3, 4 kids. And he then got kicked out of wherever he was at, and now he is there. They're living it up on Section 8 and whatever they are doing. But this stuff happens,
Yes.
and it is not until somebody marries into a family and you're like, wait, what?
It's like that Mary Latoro story back in what was that in the 80s when she fell in love with that young boy and then they proceeded to have those kids and they ended up getting married.
Right.
And I didn't realize that she had passed away a few years ago from cancer,
Yeah.
but because I think I brought that up that her
Mhm.
daughter was getting married and she was doing a tribute to her mom, so I wasn't aware. But it was a big deal. She went to jail. They told them to stay away, and she still proceeded. She was married and had 3 or 4 kids. She left her husband for this kid.
Yeah.
So it's just stuff like that. And now,
Yeah, and men was praising the
yes,
guy.
they sure were. Yes,
But the women was insulting the woman.
yeah.
It wasn't the men.
And then after that story, that was so long ago, you started kind of seeing on social media. And I think I saw a story recently about a woman who got in trouble, a teacher for, messing with these. So it's just like, that's just, I don't really know what to say about that. That's just like, that's not okay for a woman to do that or a man to do that. There shouldn't be a double standard, especially people in positions of power, like the teacher. I mean, I remember being in school and be like, oh, that teacher's handsome. I mean, I feel like that's kind of normal for you to maybe have a little crush on or a teacher. Oh, we think she's pretty. A boy might think the teacher's attractive. But for it to go further to where the teacher starts flirting with the student, that's no, that should never happen.
So what do y'all think? Y'all kind of quiet over there.
Just listening. Just listening. I mean, just taking it in. I guess what keeps coming to mind for me is how do you teach to the double standard? In other words, yeah, you could address the double standard. You can point out a double standard, but how do you address the double standard?
That's a good question.
And it's because the double standard doesn't just exist in the school.
Yeah.
Double standard doesn't just exist on a job. For many of us, double standard started in the homes.
Yeah.
So if you want to address a double standard, then you got to go to the root of the problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where the double standard first showed its ugly head.
We treat boys and girls differently. We raise them differently.
Well,
definitely.
and I mean, but think about it. This is something I mentioned before, but it's just like, our young men, our young ladies, especially our young ladies, and I gotta say it. It's like I don't know what's going on in these homes where our young ladies are not being taught to respect themselves. Yeah. And this is what I mean.
Sorry,
I know when I'm saying is respect themselves. What I'm saying is that when you want to address the double standard, really address the double standard the way the double standard should be addressed. Let our young ladies be young ladies.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Let them be kids.
Yes, I agree with that. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Stop rushing them to be adults.
No, I agree with that.
Stop dressing them up to be adults.
Yes,
Stop making them look like adults.
Yeah.
Stop buying them clothes and make them look like adults. It's like no. Let's address that double standard so that it can be addressed appropriately.
The funny thing, not to cut you off, but the funny thing today, I was witnessing that at a house I was working at, and the lady was forcing her 14-year-old girl to babysit all the other kids, and so the girl was upset. So there was a big old argument in the house, and she was just like, I'm tired of babysitting. These are your kids, not mine.
Right.
100%.
You going to babysit because that's what you going to do.
But that's normal. That has become normal.
Yeah, that's not
like
right.
that.
That's
It's not right.
But the oldest son was in the room out
Okay.
kicking the doors and one time he ain't doing nothing. They didn't do nothing, but she was forcing the young. He's older,
right?
But she's forcing the girl to do it.
Right. But again, that's a double standard.
Absolutely.
However,
definitely.
So again, but then you have to ask the question: why are kids raising kids like they're adults?
Exactly.
Right.
It's just like, no, you're the adult. You had the kids. You raise them. You teach them. You
Definitely.
Why you don't have kids to help take care of kids, because kids shouldn't be teaching kids. Adults should be
Right.
teaching kids. So
Right.
again, why is there a double standard? That's why I said the double standard starts in the home,
Yeah.
and then it spills over
Yeah.
to the outside.
Definitely. I want to address what you said about the girls. That is true. Also on the flip side of that, like you can have, because my mom was very religious, she was very strict, so was my father. They did not play those. We were taught to dress certain ways and all of that. But when you go into school and stuff, you're kind of ridiculed for that. You know, you're teased, so you feel pressure because you want to look like everybody else. Now, mind you, just so I can kind of preface it, like my mom was at a church where everything was a sin. You couldn't wear pants. It was extreme back then.
Sure.
She got out of that.
Red
I'm saying so
lipstick,
that
you're going to hell.
yeah, everything.
Yeah.
So as a young girl who's just trying to, grow up, I felt awkward, to be honest, because I had to wear a long dress. Wait, so I felt awkward. I wanted to be cool. Not necessarily not covered up, because my dad wasn't going for that. He wasn't good. My father, may he rest in peace, if he even saw me in a pair of shorts and I'm a grown woman, he didn't like that. And they would be appropriate shorts for him. So that's just who he was. I'm like, Daddy, I'm grown. I got my own kids. I don't care if I put some clothes on. I'm like, my shorts come to my knees. Like that's who he was. So it's like, I think now, and some mothers do condone this. You don't know who's the mama or the daughter because they both dress alike. So I feel you on that. Sometimes that pressure also for girls or just to fit in. You see what everybody else is wearing,
I get
so
that.
you want to look like them. You might sneak. You might go out the house with one thing. You might sneak because you want to be cool or whatever. But right, it definitely starts at home, because I'd be like, hey, I didn't learn that. My mom taught me to dress a certain way and to carry myself as a young lady. That is what I was taught. Sometimes we go against what we were taught as well, but but it's still in the back of your mind. I'd be like, well, my mom, I would think, oh, well, if I can't wear this in front of my parents, then I shouldn't be wearing, I shouldn't have to cover up. So it's like a matter of respect thing too, like certain things
and within that double standard, and within that home structure, as you mentioned, I know when I was growing up, I was freely to go as I pleased because I was a boy.
Yep.
But my sisters couldn't do that. They had to stay home. They couldn't go out. If they did, they had to have a chaperone, something like that. They had to take each other. I didn't have to take nobody with me. You know what I mean? So I seen the double standard then too. You know what I mean? And that right there caused a lot of the women to rebel too, because they all seen their brothers who
why he get to do? Because he's a boy.
Okay, so here's a question.
Boys will be boys.
So here's the question. Okay, why was there a double standard? Why was that the case?
Oh, I never asked.
Well, but it's a question worth asking though.
That's a good question. Oh yeah,
Well, no, I mean what I'm saying is, no, I want to ask these two.
Sure. So
okay, why?
Why do we think it was?
Yeah, why do you think it was?
Yeah. So I would say that it goes back to their parents and how they were taught, and I would say that it comes down to the way that we look at men. We look at men and we say the tool that he has to populate the world can be put in and put out, and we say that for the woman, you are entered, so you don't allow people to, a number of people to enter you. Like we put that on them. Don't allow people to enter you. You have to, protect your box. But for the boys, then we say, hey, you can enter and you can put that thing wherever, wash it off and keep it pushing. You don't have any feelings, this type of thing. We teach them not to have any feelings, and we know that these women and that the young girls, that they do have feelings. And so I think that that's where that comes from. Because it's just like, he's fine, he's a man, he's a soldier, he's strong, he can just go out and do whatever he wants to do. There wasn't any, if we go back to what Brother Elijah would say weeks ago, but there's not a man figure in some of those homes. So that man figure, is not in those homes. And you have those women that are just like, go. I'm not dealing with it.
And I think a lot of that is because the women bring the babies home versus the men don't bring them home. So I think that was
nowadays some of the men.
I think that was
bringing the babies home, and the women are.
I think that was just one of the outlooks of what they was. I think where the assumption came in, or the concept came in, but not to say it was right.
I mean, even discipline-wise, you'll punch a boy in the chest, but you're not punching your daughter.
Yeah.
You're not punching your daughter in the chest. The boys, tear your tail all the way up. How dare you? I might pull you. What? Who are you talking to? You know, but my girl, like, no, I'm a. Yeah, if I raise my voice, if I take her phone, like it's little things like that, which everyone's personality.
So what is that? So what is that saying? What you're expressing right now? What is that saying? You said, little boy, you punch her in the chest. Little girl, you're not gonna punch her in the chest. Little girl, you yell at, she's gonna cry. Little boy, you can let him have it. What is that showing?
I mean, man,
what is that? What is that?
Showing the double standard. We're showing that there's strength and that they can handle that. Is
it a double standard? Is it a double standard? Or are there differences?
There's differences.
There's definitely differences.
Okay, so let's talk about those. Let's talk about those differences because those differences are necessary to be talked about in order for us to understand.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And they have to move. They have to navigate differently anyway in the streets, right? Because
who has to navigate differently?
My boys than my girl, because they're treated. First of all, the melanin is already a weapon. So when the cop sees you, they already see you as a threat. Period. So they have to be more humble, and we have to teach them this, to be a little bit more humble. I will deal with whatever it is that we have to deal with on the back end. I just need you to make it home safely. I got some drivers now, so I need you to make it home safely, but we will deal with whatever it is on the back end. Be humble, be respectful, don't show your attitude. Like everything that a white kid would be able to use their white privilege and have an attitude. I've watched these videos. They got attitudes with the cops, attitudes with the school, whatever it is, it's all washed away. They're fine, but it's held to a different level when it's our kids. Our kids are not making it home.
But
with the same attitude.
What I'm asking is, we were talking about the difference between girls and boys. Okay, how girls are treated versus how boys are treated. Okay, the way you see boys and how you see girls when it comes to discipline or when it comes to addressing them or even allowing them to come and go. Okay, why is there a difference? Why? That's what I'm asking. Why is there a difference? Why was there ever a difference? Okay, is it just about sex, or can you also throw in their safety?
I think all of it plays the part.
Okay.
He's a hunter.
Sir, you got something to say? You raised your.
We as African Americans in this country have never experienced a family structure. Period. Non-existent. The generation that we're talking, the attitude that you are formulating now, 85% of that, 60% of that is based upon your own experience. 40% of that comes from what you see on television. We are the only people that function in the world the way that we do. And that's because of our existence in this country, the way that we were perpetuated in this country, and now the way that we are being extinct in this country. I said this last time. 74% of all households are single parents. Easy, right off the top. There's no other culture that has that written down. In that, the disproportionate number of that are women in control, which is cause for most males to have a different outlook on the female and the male than any other culture. They see the woman as the head, period, and they see a man as somebody that comes in and goes out. So when we try to look at any kind of problem, we can't, one, identify a result of that problem because we have no mechanism to alter it. We can't alter any of the problems at all. The thing that is happening right now across the board, which is all Eurocentric in development, because they've always been like this, they were saying a acceptable understanding of homosexuality. Europeans have always been like that, part of their culture. The only time they revised that is based upon where they are geographically and what has to happen and what doesn't happen. When we as African Americans in this country come into these kinds of settings and try to realize or try to formulate an understanding why we are still in the same situation today as we were in since we came here. There's no difference. The only thing that deviates us from being recognized as slaves is the communication lines, which programs people to deal with things overall, tell a vision. And it's very difficult if you don't have a history where you're Asians can come into our community and for all of a sudden just flourish. Now, how can Asians come into a ghetto and automatically flourish?
Because they're not welcome in the white community.
Hmm?
They don't let them build there.
Who?
The Asians. They force them to be in the hoods. That is where they are giving them the dollar to go. They can't go out there.
Okay. Well,
I don't know about that because they're kind of everywhere.
It
So it's not
right.
depends upon the geographics. The world is different between Chicago and Omaha.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely.
Okay, what was the distance? Velocity. Okay, in Omaha, the black community, you can walk from one end of a black community to the other end of the black community in less than a 4-hour period of time. You can't do that in a place like Chicago. You can't do that in a place like Detroit. You can't do other kind of things because it's so huge and whatever.
Oh, right.
So that causes for even in Omaha for us to perceive things differently. We may have an experience living in the larger cities, but 9 times out of 10, if you have the wherewithal to get out of there, you get out of there. If you got any sense, also, okay, because they're all destructive, and that's because where we're at, we are in no control. We have no control. And that gets also, when you really get deep into it, it gets to our spiritual understanding. Spiritual understanding allows for you to believe who you are and why creation put you here and how much control you have. If you've never really understood that and were programmed how you function, then you still function as a slave. And that's where we're
Can I
at.
jump in
go
real
ahead.
quick?
Yeah,
just
yeah.
with one of the viewers, since I have to read these
Mhm.
comments, because we definitely want everyone to join the conversation. Boss Vic says, are double standards always negative? For example, a military has different units, though those units may go out to the same war, they will do battle differently. A tank unit will fight differently than a rifle unit. Thus, you must treat and train them differently. One could make the argument that though young men and young women are both going out in the world, the struggle that they have, they'll face it differently.
Yes.
I like that.
Very good
Yes.
comment. Yeah.
100%.
Okay.
That's what that was the direction of my question.
Okay.
Yes.
That was the direction.
Different
That was the direction of it.
world,
Yes.
situations.
And to address those things, because I'm glad you was making a point. But I think it's easier if you just say it instead of us trying to guess, because then sometimes we
said it was different though.
We'll go around.
Well, the thing is,
deal with it as we go.
what the thing is that when I ask questions to get us to think. That's why I ask questions, because when you think, when you ask questions and then you collaborate and you all answer it, then you get closer to your why you think the way you think. If you just give the answer, you don't get to you never really get an understanding of why you think the way you think, because oftentimes we're programmed to think certain way, just like you said, television. You're programmed to think a certain way, you're raised a certain way to think a certain way, but you never stop to ask the question as to why. Why do I think this way? Why is it this way? Why do I do things this way? Because I've always done this way. I've never stopped to ask the question why. So when someone asks why, now you have to think about it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. What I'm saying, I'm not saying that don't ask the question. It's just that when it goes around more than once, then the question has to be told.
Mm-hmm.
Then we can ask, do you understand that? So then everybody can get an understanding, because sometimes we'll go around that subject trying to everybody scratching their head and no one wants to look stupid on television. I'm just saying. I'm not
that's-
saying. Some people think that way. I'm not saying all. I'm just saying.
Name me one significant major change of Black people's lives in America that occurred during the Obama administration.
There's not.
Always going there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but you know,
So
but that's because we came in with a false narrative. We didn't vote for policy change.
No,
we
we voted for
voted
color.
because of color.
Yeah, let's go.
So we have to understand that was a standard. That was a double standard on us because we got lost in a misconception.
None of it's
we
for us.
were lost anyway. But
No matter who's in charge.
We had the hopefulness
Oh, yeah.
that having a Black president would have altered our situation, of which not one situation altered.
If we believe that he's actually in charge.
And but the thing is, how we was gonna hope for something to change, but we didn't even invest in him.
Well,
that's one of the things you got to think about because anytime a president, you take your money, everybody in the Black community put their dollars together and say we're gonna buy this, we're gonna buy our agenda, and we're gonna put it on the table. This is once we pay for it, this is what our demands are. When have we done that as a collective?
We will never be able to do that as long as Europeans are in control of the governmental system.
So you're saying we can never, but every other culture does it.
See,
Who did that?
Every other culture.
I would disagree. I will disagree, and this is why I disagree.
What I said? Okay, go ahead.
I disagree because we have choice.
Yeah.
We all have choice, and what I'm saying is,
controlled by what?
Our choices. What I'm saying is in our own
controlled by what?
In our hold on a second. Okay. Even in our own communities, our own Black communities, we are our worst enemies. In our own Black communities, where we can control our own dollars, we can control our own properties, we can control our own decisions, we can raise our own children in our own communities. And guess what? We do each other the worst.
Yeah.
So therefore, the change has to start with us. Before we can expect that change to go outward, the first change needs to take place inward.
Why haven't we did it?
That's a good question. Why haven't we done it? Why can't we?
Because the power base will not allow it.
No, I disagree.
We don't trust each other.
Yeah,
We don't trust.
okay, here's an example. Let's talk about double standard. Let's talk about that for a second, because that's the subject today, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna tell you what I saw. I'm at Walmart one day. Okay. I'm about to go in, and the Black couple pulls up in front of the door. Okay. They're blocking the way for somebody to leave. The person is sitting there, they're honking their horn, and they're just standing there having a conversation like that person doesn't even exist.
Why are we like that?
We like that on the street.
I'm just saying. No, what I'm saying. Now look. If somebody came to your house and blocked your driveway and did that exact same thing, you would lose your mind. Okay, but yet you can do it to other people. Let's talk about that double standard.
Yeah,
okay.
Double standard.
Let's hold on. Since the beginning of time, I can talk about my sister any way I want to. I can talk about my brother any way I want to, but you can't do it. Double standard.
Yeah, that's a double standard.
Okay, let's talk about them double standards.
We call each other niggas, but
we don't want nobody else using the word. Let's talk about them double standards. Okay. Again, if we're gonna address double standard, let's address them the way we really need to. Let's go and tell the truth now.
Yeah.
Okay, because we gotta hold ourselves accountable for the double standards that we're talking about. Why do we have to hold ourselves accountable?
If you don't have the ability to control it, why would you take on the responsibility?
I have the ability to control my own decisions. I have that ability.
We have the
control ourselves.
We have the ability. What the problem is that we're lazy, we're ignorant towards the outcome because we don't think collectively, we think individually.
And I agree with that 100%. I agree that in order for us to come together collectively, that takes a simple decision. Yes. That takes people who make a determination, just like you said. You get your money together, boom, you start an agenda, boom, and you say, hey, this is what our demands are. Boom. You get enough people doing that.
What
Now you got movement.
What was the first thing you said you have to do?
Make a choice.
No,
Get
that
the
ain't what you
people
said.
together.
Get your
But
money
the thing,
together.
Yeah.
right.
If you don't have control of that ability to control how you get your money, how you keep your money, and in most cases, in where you spend your money, how can you have that kind of power?
You have choice of where you spend your money.
Let me break it down. I'm gonna give you an example. When I was working at Housing Authority, I was a foreman. All right. We had to go when they was about to do a shift of change of new leadership. I sat in the meetings and heard the changes that was going to come down the pipeline. So I tried to implement those changes before the changes was or before they was coming. And I tried to get the brothers in them to understand, because remember, housing was mostly predominantly black, right?
The tenants were predominantly
No, workers too. Go look it up. It's more work. It was more black workers, and then now today it's not. Before then, it was a bunch of black. It was black upper end, upper management, and workers. So the thing was, I was trying to get them to understand that change is coming down the line. Y'all need to get on. We had 87% black folks on light duties, restrictions, and workmen's comps. You know why? Because they was playing the system. They was utilizing the system because they said, this is our culture over here. This is how we do things. So I said, you know what? I used to go in and tell myself, I said, man, there's no way this company is gonna be able to function on that type of mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Never.
Yeah, housing authority.
Any company.
And I said, all y'all got. They was having.
That's a lot of people on.
They was on FMLI. They would wake up in the morning, and guess how they was utilizing FMLI. They wake up in the morning and go, oh, FMLA. Oh, you know what?
What is that?
I don't feel like going to work. I'm gonna use my FMLA. That's how you use FMLA. If you look under the policy and procedures, that's not how you utilize it.
Somebody allowed them to.
But they was allowing.
I was gonna say they shouldn't have been allowed to.
People in charge was allowing them to happen. Guess what?
Because in corporate America, they don't play that.
And guess what was happening? Guess what was happening? Housing authority houses was looking like crap, and you was getting wrecked. And you was seeing it on the news talking about. But they was rejecting other people that own homes that have people living in their house as tenants under housing authority. People going in to inspectors going to inspect their unit, but their houses were looking like crap. How do you? That's the double standard in the understand. So what I was trying to tell these guys, man, y'all better get y'all act together, man. You need to get off of that light duty restriction, all this stuff and this and that. Oh, they come back with doctor's note. So I was telling. So when I was in a meeting, I said, I went into the company policy book for all the things that the company policy is in black and white. Let them see. I said, how in the heck this policy is not being implemented and it's in black and white? And these guys, you got up to a year under the policy in the black and white to come back full duty. If not, your job is in jeopardy. And guess what they did? They was not implementing this, and this is our people. And guess what? Guess who was suffering? Our people. Because guess who's on housing? Our people. And guess who's working for them? Our people. This is the problem we was having.
So you explained the whole situation right there. We have no control of any mechanism.
We had control of housing.
How can you be ahead? How can
we're abusing the
housing a government program?
No.
How can you have control of housing? The only way you can control it is be a tenant.
But if you're working there and you're implementing those laws, if you're in a position of power, you do have that.
Yeah.
Let me read what Lavelle said. He just had 2 comments before we get too far down. He said, every other culture has a culture. And he also said, we shoot each other all the time, but let a different color shoot us, it's an outcry.
Exactly.
Or a cop.
Exactly. Oh yeah, those are 100%. That's a fact.
Yes.
That is a fact.
And I'm not saying that we can't that we gonna have total control, because guess what? Anybody who doesn't think as a collective and think individually, you can never have total control. You're gonna always be mishandled and misguided. Because guess what? individual thinking gets you individual results.
Mm-hmm.
But when you think collectively, guess what happened? You cannot come just like we said. You can talk about my brother and sister, but I ain't gonna let you talk about it. So if you coming over here in the black community and think you're gonna do something to us, you're gonna do it to all of us. And guess what? We're gonna take a stance on that, and we're gonna stop it right in its track.
But the stance that we have to take is first with ourselves.
Yes.
In other words, the stance that we take is we hold ourselves accountable, and then we can hold others accountable. Because you can't say, oh well, I can do it, but you can't do it.
Exactly.
That's a double standard.
Not as I do.
Yeah, you want to complain about a double standard that you're engaging in.
Yes.
Why in 2023 are we saying the same things that is historical?
Because we lost sight of kingdom building. We lost sight of togetherness. Meaning that I think that at some point we had a belief in a higher being. We had a belief in there is better to come. We had a belief in if I'm going to do right, I'm going to be a good disciple. I'm going to kingdom build. And that was togetherness. And we lost togetherness.
And who created that?
I'm not going to go tit for tat on who created it. But what I know for sure, and I get it. It is important that the white man introduced us to religion. But what I'm saying is we got to know God for ourselves. And so knowing
through what mechanism?
Through what was in me when I was given. When I was born, whatever was in me, now I know him, and I know that together, that is the currency for kingdom. And that is what we need. We need togetherness, we need love. And until we get that back, it was there at some point. Yes. I know it. I know it was there.
Name it.
I'm going to go back to when my grandparents were in the same home. At some point, and I think the point is when they realized, because your dad.
How old are your grandparents right now?
They're gone, but they left here when they were 91. One was 103. But I'm gonna go back to when you said that your father was like factory working. Right. Mm-hmm. And so we had railroad, we had factories, we had a lot of this stuff in our communities that these men they made good money. They were able to send you to private school. Mm-hmm. They made good money. Mm-hmm. Those jobs, boom, they sucked those out. We stopped doing those. They put in welfare, don't make this much so we can give you, housing, we can give you food stamps. That broke up that family element. But what I'm saying is, at one point we had love. Your dad was loving your mama and loving them. Then that's the time.
We're not talking about individuality. We're talking about time.
Right, but you had that experience in your family. I had that experience in my family. I'm sure somebody else here can say grandma and grandpa paid for everything and they did. Like there was men.
When we was growing up, and because you always ask that question when, I'm just gonna go off of my experience. Me and my cousin, we was in the same experience. We had the same experience. We grew up in the same environment. When we was growing up, everybody had a garden. Mm-hmm. Everybody met in the middle of the street, and guess what? They exchanged what they grew for everybody to have plentiful. Mm-hmm. Nobody in the community went without because everybody was looking out for each other. That was during our time period. And if we did something down the street, they whooped us and brought us back home and told us. There was some good togetherness at one point. It might not last as long. It might not.
Well, I was in St. Louis, and it was like that.
It was like that in Chicago. It was like that in Chicago when I lived on 45th and Michigan. It was like that. Because my aunties and uncles they was doing stuff. They was doing stuff for everybody knew. Oh, don't mess with Mrs. Miss Freddie over there. Oh, don't mess with Top Dog over there. That's how they was doing it. But I'm just saying, it always was. It happened. It might have been a short time span. It might have been over 10 or 20 years. But it was some time where we experienced it because we grew up in that in that older generation. That's why we're better men today. Because I see my sons.
Give me an example of better.
We're better men today.
Give me an example of better.
Our better men, we make better decisions because we seen the effects of when the change started to come. We seen when our our parents was falling off.
And they're not in prison.
And I'm not saying that that they fell. Some of them fell off to the deep end, and because drugs and all that stuff was implemented in that time in the 80s and all that. So they was in the party and drug stage. So we experienced that, and we knew that them drugs came in and ruined and wiped out a lot of our existence as far as culture-wise. Now, but we never really had a base where we could call home and call back to and say, hey, you know what? They are treating us wrong. We need to do this. But I want to hold. I'm gonna give you this so she can read a couple comments first, then give you back the floor. But I want to ask you this question because you always ask us the question. Why did y'all fight for civil rights and y'all didn't fight for humanity?
When you say y'all, who you talking about?
You're the
Civil rights era.
When you
Civil rights era.
Right, talking civil rights
Yeah,
era.
he's talking about civil rights era. So we can get reparations.
Who were the predominant?
I don't know. So I'm asking you.
Who were the predominant people that are recognized during the so-called civil rights era?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking you.
Name one.
Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King.
What happened to Martin Luther King?
Malcolm X.
What happened to Malcolm X?
They were both
They got
shot.
assassinated.
They both got assassinated.
Okay, but that's not the question I asked. I said what? Why did y'all fight for civil? Why did y'all go for civil rights versus humanity?
Because most of us come through a Christian religion as it applies to our real hope on who's in control. That's why all of them got killed and they died, because they didn't have any numbers behind them. Because we don't have any physical spots where we have any control of any communication that will allow for us to galvanize. We've always depended upon churches to give us that information.
Okay, but
Weren't they shot by black men?
To me,
Weren't they shot by black men?
Pardon?
Weren't they shot by black men?
Who?
Malcolm X was.
Malcolm X was.
And Martin Luther
Harvey
King-
Oswald was.
But Malcolm X was sold out by his own people.
So I mean that's
Martin Luther King was sold out by his own people. Both of them
When
were
you
sold out by
say
his
your
own
own people,
people.
you're talking about us, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
because they went for it out.
Let me get these.
well. No, I mean it's a fact.
Well, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the point.
That's the same problem we're having today.
Yeah. We don't.
That it's been that way for.
And it,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We got some comments.
Let me jump in real quick. Chaperone Roni says, at work, our people will act like it's a problem with our own, but be all up in those other folks' face, hee and ha ha. And so,
This is a poor job.
yeah. Alan says, hey, Brother Alan, he says, living wage factory workers were moved. Factory jobs, were moved out to urban areas, and public transportation was limited, causing barriers for blacks to follow where the jobs were going. Allen also said the U.S. Constitution spoke to civil rights more so than the human rights. And that's what
Western America is a prime example of that mover of a large financial base out west. Europeans cannot afford for their survival to take us out of slavery. They can't. And so they don't. That's why you have more men in prison.
I feel that. I mean, they keep us down, sure.
Well, so that's where we have to we want to talk about the way that it should be. We're too far into this thing to talk about how it should be. We need to be talking about why is it still the way that it is.
Okay, but riddle me this one then. Okay. And during the civil rights movement, I believe that they did show some signs of power.
Who?
And it crippled their power.
Who?
When they boycotted.
Boycotted what?
When they boycotted spending money.
Where?
Martin Luther King. You tell me Martin Luther King didn't boycott spending
You're
money?
talking about down south.
Yes.
Okay, you're talking about down south.
It doesn't matter. It was a boycott all over. It was a boycott for them to say economically, only way we can we gonna make them see us by hurting them financially, because they knew that it was utilizing us financially. Same thing they're doing right now, because we're so ignorant. We're so ignorant. Guess what we do? When we know every holiday coming around the corner, who they targeting? The consumers, the ones that spend the most money. They target us on television.
That's general population.
And now internet.
Yeah.
I'm saying, that's right.
That's general population. All right, general population of workers and those kinds of things. we don't have any situation in Omaha. The other cities may run across it. They still, because it's so large, and physically controlled, that it never. There's a world of difference in a black community in Omaha and a black community in Chicago or Detroit.
Yeah, well, you know,
Right.
with some of them,
Numbers. Numbers.
Right.
But what's that? But what's that have to do with mindset though? Because of numbers.
Those huge numbers.
You
The action. If we took the actions that we needed to do and boycotted all of that, would cause for a whole nother different scenario. You can't be in a place like Chicago and just have this area over here that has a revolution of context, say they're going to do this and think it's going to affect the general thing. It's not. Okay? We don't have any media. The only mechanism we have on getting kinds of communications is through churches. All right? And we don't deal with those things anymore. All right? Most of them, all of them shut down and closed up.
Not mine.
All
Well,
right?
there's a lot of churches still functioning.
And let me read Boss Vic.
No, there's still a lot of churches
Right.
functioning.
Let me jump in with Boss Vic. He says, our fight for civil rights was a fight for our right to be recognized as humans.
Yes.
Civil rights was the title, human rights, the actual struggle.
Okay, and what I wanna get back to Bob on that one. That's correct but incorrect at the same time, because the Native American Standing Bearer, when they went and walked the trails of tears, they walked for the rock of humanity. So once they earned their humanity, once they was recognized as human, they was able to sue the United States government for the cruelty to humanity on them. That's why they got reparation. We cannot sue on civil rights. That's why we are not, because we haven't even went back to the drawing board and fought for the 3/5 of a human being that they say that we are today, as we was of yesterday. And we have more men, like you said, in prison. We have more men in politics that look like us, walk like us, and talk like us, but ain't us, who sit in the office, who's representing us, and ain't thought to bring that back to the table so we can go back and say, you know what? You have not treated us like humanity. We have not been treated as humane. So now we're taking the abuse as civil citizens. We want to be treated as humanity, just like as you have been treated. Whites to come over here, the reason why they got all the rights, because they treated like humans. They're humans first before they're anything else. We're not treated like humans because we still they look at us as a civil suit. So everything has to be under a docket. It has to tell us what the classification of how they should treat us. That's civil. When it's human, animals got more rights than we do.
There's only two nations of people that have that problem. That's the Native Americans and us.
Yeah, but Native Americans getting treated bad. They get a check. They got reparations. They got their own land.
Now casinos.
That's a
They
fact.
making money.
But they're on reservations.
I'm not saying they're doing great with it.
But it's something.
It's something.
The basic control of all, particularly the ones in Iowa. That's why they put most of the casinos on the other side of the Missouri River as opposed on the Nebraska side of the river.
Nebraska will never go for it.
No political system is ever going to go for it. But Iowa is so so wide open spaces that you can't identify. Sioux City ain't nowhere. Des Moines ain't nowhere. All right, you don't have no pockets where black folks can come together and say we won't bring this all to a stop. We talk about Omaha, but we don't go no further than Lincoln. You don't hear about nothing that goes off out in there, what goes on, what's happening. So you controlled about this. We are so far away from the reality of our existence because we are so accustomed to living the way that we live that we think this is a standard way of procedure. That's why we have difficulties in our communication between the ages. Okay, we wouldn't have this kind of difficulty in a place like Chicago.
But
because all we can talk about is less than maybe 20,000, maybe.
But elder. But let's take the microscopic lens and let's look deeper into this. If we looked at every city every state, every county that has us in it, how come we going through the same exact thing? If they,
Yeah.
even if they're a
So
bigger
they-
city,
they-
even if they're a bigger
Because
city,
what?
small
No, all the
city,
But what
It
hasn't
don't change.
what hasn't changed?
The rules,
Mindset.
the rules and the regulations.
No,
that
it's
they
no,
place
it's the
on us.
mindsets. It's the mindsets. A change in mindset brings about change.
Whose mindset?
Ours.
We don't have no control over our existence.
Oh my gosh.
We don't.
we
I
have
don't.
to have a change. We have to
Then
have,
why haven't we manifested it?
because guess what?
Because we're choosing not to.
Huh?
We're choosing
Why?
not to.
Why?
Why? That's a good question. Why?
We like living.
What?
We like living.
We like living.
Yeah.
Material wealth living.
You're right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Living.
Oh, but
No, I know what you mean by life. You talking about breathing,
Yeah, we like
living, breathing,
Right.
walking, talking.
Right.
So you think so you said we're selling ourselves.
What else would you call
I like him.
Boss Vic said, well said. If you're saying we should not allow our struggle to be labeled one of civil rights, but instead of human rights, if so, I agree. We are not seen as humans, but instead the stray dog in the neighborhood that some believe you shouldn't kick. Others believe that you should throw a bone to once in a while. And lastly, others look at for every excuse to put it down. Alan said the only opinion for Black liberation is to not be in America. There is no other way to dance around the system that is America.
That's very absolutely
Where are we
correct.
going though?
But you know what?
Mm.
And I'm gonna say, we have.
That's acquiescing.
We had to put our hands in our pockets.
That's bowing down.
You remember when Malcolm X, when the first thing they died, he said, "Get your hand out of my pocket."
Mm-hmm.
Now we have had our hands in our pockets for too long,
What do you mean
allowing
hands in our pocket?
stuff to just drift by us.
We ain't had no control to change it.
Okay, let me say something. Integrity, the wheels of integrity rose in on
Christianity
character.
killed all that kind of philosophy.
No. What killed us is that we have allowed others to come in and to interpret and
Come in where?
come in.
Come in where?
Came in
Came in where?
Our minds.
our minds.
Our
And-
thinking,
When
home.
have they ever been out of it?
They
Well,
came in
well,
through
let me say something. So in the movie Dracula, what was the thing they always said about Dracula?
Don't invite them in.
He had to have permission.
He had to have permission to come in.
Right.
Once he got
I don't
in,
understand
he
what you
would.
mean.
Dracula was standing at
Once
the
he
door.
came in, he bit you and he turned you into a dark soul. What we have done, we let material wealth come in and bite us.
Why are you using a cartoon to explain?
That's not a
It's not a
reality?
cartoon, it's a movie.
Same difference.
It's a reality.
It's not a reality. It's a movie.
It's
No,
big.
it's a reality.
Okay.
It's a
Not a
principle of
reality.
understanding.
Now, how many Draculas have you seen come up to court since you've been?
I see a lot of them sitting up in there. You know what they do?
And they
They got
accused-
dark
and
souls and they
got
bite people. They
accused
affecting
of
them.
being a vampire.
Yeah, they affecting us.
Oh my God.
And they were accused of being a vampire.
I think Frankenstein's in our